thing imaginable. Literally, death is better than that.
But there are white converts. Have you spoken to any of them?
Northern
Yes,
is
and I
very
hate all of them.
Northern is
Except for
very
Kaz,
noble.
but I give Kaz a bit of a break because he's so young. But honestly, I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of uncomfortable talking to Kaz because of the Muslim thing.
Oh.
Well, at first,
Well,
I kind of thought it was a meme. Like, I thought he was doing, like, a bit. And then I realized it was kind of real. But I remembered that he's only, like, 20 years old. But I don't know, man. I mean, I guess he's been a Muslim for a few years. And, like, it doesn't seem like it's a meme. Like, he literally wants to be, like, a polygamist.
well, it's an option of up to 4 wives. So I guess if you can afford it, if you have the energy for that sort of thing, you can.
Equally. You need to
And
treat
it's
them
optional.
equally, whatever
It's
that
not
means.
forbidden. It's going to be a nightmare. Every holiday is going to be some kind of corporate meeting. Do you mind? Can I take whoever? Who will? Which wife will I choose? And all kinds of things. I've read a book about that, and it's not going to be fun because having 4 wives is not the same as having sex with four women. I mean, I think most people who are Muslim would understand that it's paying for their stuff and the stuff of their children. It's not something you should
Claire,
undertake
would you
lightly.
allow your husband to get a second one, let alone for?
It would depend on what age I am. I suppose if I were the first wife and found the whole thing tiresome, and he obviously wants another child, then I wouldn't. If I were the equivalent of Catherine of Aragon, who was the first wife of Henry VIII, whom he wanted to divorce or have his marriage annulled because she couldn't give him any more children, and he really desperately wanted to. I let him, yes, because I assume, I'd understand that he would want to leave his kingdom to a male heir.
I don't
So,
really understand. Personally, I don't resonate with polygamy. Like, I don't think you could put as much love into multiple people as one person.
You can't.
I think people like to imagine that they would, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's really an option for you if you've suffered a ruinous war like the British, who fought World War I and World War II, and then all the men had died, and the sensible thing for them to have done would have said to the men, you have to have more than one wife, and you have to start, multiplying again.
No, there would have been less men because they died in the war. There would have been more women.
Well, yeah, but the point is that then the fewer men would have the additional burden. Sorry to put it like that to you guys, of saying no, you have to take more than one wife because you can't let all those childless women who would otherwise childless, and anyway we need more people. So instead of importing all these people from the Caribbean and whatever, that was what the British should have done if they were Muslim, and they weren't, so they didn't. And all these spinsters died childless when they desperately wanted to be married, and it was a waste. It was a waste, and now they're complaining forever about immigration and what it's done to their country. And it happened to all the Europeans because they had the same problem, because they stuck to their monogamy, because polygamy was not an option for them. So there you go. And even in peacetime, the fact
Are
is
there any? I'm curious if there are any historical examples of polygamy like the opposite way, like where it's like it's like a woman has multiple husbands. Like one woman shares multiple husbands. Has that ever been? Probably hasn't been.
yes. In Tibet, they used to do that, which is really creepy because a woman might have more than one husband in the house. And I saw a documentary of this novice Buddhist monk and channel
I
4
think
basically.
men would actually rather do that though, probably, because that would be more. No, that would be more fair. Because if there's like a hot woman, like men would be more happy to like share than the other way around.
Or happy, but they would know who their kid is. Well, that would be the really annoying thing. Like, she's pregnant and she's my wife, but I share her with other men. Whose kid is she carrying? That would be horrible, wouldn't it, guys?
Yeah, but just maybe don't have maybe those marriages don't have children.
Well, they do. So basically, what for Tibetans is basically about sharing property, and there's some weird rule like you can do it if you're all brothers or something, but not otherwise. It can't be random men and not related to each other. And I saw. Okay, so the camera basically followed this Buddhist monk back to his home, and there was one of his fathers chopping the vegetables and another father doing something else, and they weren't rich or anything, and it's like the poor woman permanently knocked up. I mean, even with one husband, a woman could be permanently knocked up. But it's like, yeah, you're a woman, you're sharing. Uh, your home with all these men who have sexual access to you, and you've got to have their children. I can't think of anything more nightmarish than that. And look at Tibet, it's now a region of China. Obviously, its model of society is not going to be, taken up by anyone else outside Tibet. I mean, these things are important, aren't they? I mean, because marriage and all these rules is how you plan for the next generation. That's the only way. I mean, if you want to remain in existence, you have to have children, and then there will be conditions imposed on who gets reproductive rights, just like any other kind of social animal.
Like Northern said, the problem is like not that we're like there's already like overpopulation where we're outstretching our resources. Like the problem isn't that we're not having enough children. The problem is too many dumb people are having too many children.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm saying
So
need
you're
to punish
proposing
people.
that we need to we need to like declining birth rates, blah blah blah. Like we need to declining birth rates isn't necessarily a bad thing, like considering like the massive populations of these countries. So
Yeah, you got to stop the dumb people from breeding, and if you don't have enough people, the pressure to admit
but no, like
foreign labor
if you
be
try to propose
irresistible.
marriage as a solution, like a lot of dumb people are just going to get married because they want the fringe benefits.
Okay, you can control the birth rate, and this is my way of controlling birth rate, which is not, that the option of contraception remains. So you can say, you'll be entitled to the pill, woman, once you have completed your family, and the age of this can go up and down. And of course, it's got to be a married mother. It can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 1. Obviously, it's not recommended because the one-child policy in China has proven to be a mistake, because the Chinese government is finding it hard to get Chinese parents to have more than one kid because they're so used to having just one, and they think, oh, we can't afford it, we can't
Do you
afford
think that parents are more like if they have one kid that they're more attached to that kid?
Yeah, and then they become what the Chinese call little emperors. So actually, a one-child policy has been enormously dysgenic because there's this your only kid expecting to inherit everything from you, whether it's good or bad, because who else are you going to give it to? It's actually a very dysgenic policy, and you don't
That's
have
not
to
what
be.
dysgenic means, Claire.
No, dysgenic means you lose the ability to be marriageable, because if
Right, but
eugenics
that's
is
not a decrease in the genetic quality. There's nothing about the one-child policy that made it that lesser people had more children. It had a net neutral effect because to the extent the law was actually ruthlessly enforced, it prevented dumb people from having too many kids, but it lowered the fertility of the smarter people. So it had a genetic neutral effect, neither dysgenic or eugenic. It's genetically neutral.
okay, as far as I'm concerned, maybe I define words in a different way, but as I see it, the most desirable, heritable trait, if you're talking about eugenics, is marriageability. So if you were married when you had your kids, you would want your children to at least be able to marry. You want your children to be marriageable. So if you had 10 kids, you'd be delighted if they all went on to have children and gave you grandchildren, legitimate ones. But if you had 10 children and nobody wanted to marry them, obviously there's something wrong with them. And therefore the most desirable heritable trait is marriageability. You want your kid to be marriageable, and that was how things worked in the olden days. I know these terms are new and horrible to you guys because people don't even expect to perform their gender roles these days. And why didn't people mind about performing their gender roles? It was because performing your gender role, if you're looking for a mate, is essential. Because if you're a woman and you want, you'd like, well, I'm going to be slim, I'm going to be pretty, I'm going to be, loyal and sweet natured and a good husband, and I'm going to be a good wife and a good mother to your children. And the man will go, well, I'm tall and I'm handsome and I have prospects and I'm going to be rich and I'm talented, and and these gender roles were were useful if you wanted to attract a mate. And the reason why people now consider it an outrage to be told to conform to their gender roles is because there's no need now for people to marry, so they don't even associate having sex as it is in any way being associated with respectability and suitability to
Claire, I'm
enjoy
gonna stop you. We
reproductive
don't
rights.
need Islam to solve any of these problems. We could do all of this with a kind of authoritarian government. Like, I'm in favor of state-arranged marriage, using genetic and psychological parameters, pairing people off that are the most compatible. There's a lot of policies we could do.
It'll be really
Involve
interesting
importing
to
a foreign religion.
do some kind of like experiment to test that. Maybe you could try to like arrange it so that people don't know it's arranged, to see if it works.
Oh, you mean state managed marriage bureaus? You mean?
Yeah, using genetic compatibility screening and things of that nature.
That's what
I mentioned these things in my book.
In the 30s.
Singapore did it, but it utterly failed in
Essentially
Singapore
eugenics.
because of the
Claire,
yes,
are
yes,
you
that's
for
what-
eugenics? I am for eugenics. Are you for eugenics?
only in a form of marriage. Only in the form of marriage, because if you say you want eugenics like Hitler and exterminating,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
retards,
Yeah, but that's a caricature.
I'm basically saying marriage is the most eugenic practice of all, and people don't understand that.
No, bigger than that.
And
No.
people talking about
Okay,
eugenics
here's the
outside
question.
marriage is reinventing the
question.
wheel.
Here's a question.
Marriage
lot of
is
younger
a
people-
small unit in eugenics. I'm talking like what Norvin said, like what Germany had in the 30s, like regarding the disabled people,
don't agree with that.
retarded people.
So here's a question. So a lot
Well,
of
they don't get married.
Not only
These
that,
people
the
won't get
negative,
married.
even the positive. Try to find a hierarchy, establish
Here's
a
a question,
hierarchy,
right?
and the
So a
top
lot of younger
SS
people-
officers would marry the top Stacies.
So I have a question for Claire. So a lot of younger people aren't on board with marriage or like religion. Like, how would you get them on board with your ideas, Claire?
Okay, thank you for that question. Because basically, I'm saying if I were given control of the airways, or if mainstream media decided that or whoever's in charge decides that secular Quranism is a good thing, then there'll be saturation coverage of secular Quranism. Everybody will think it's such a wonderful idea, and I'm such a genius, and it will be reintroduced by Christmas, but only if I have control or platformed by mainstream media. That's how easy it is, because people are prepared to believe in any kind of nonsense. From what I've noticed these days, they're doubting the moon landings, they're saying the earth is flat, and all kinds of crazy things, and prepared to fall out with each other over discussing these crazy ideas, because that is what the CIA are enticing people to waste their time discussing. And I'm saying, there are solutions to our problems. We just don't want to even think about them because we're too proud. A lot of people say, well, if we adopt Islam, it's tantamount to admitting that 2,000 years of Christianity is wrong. And that is the great obstacle. People don't want to think that they've been had, they've had the wrong religion for so long, and they would rather die, as Norvin says. But maybe their motives should be. But okay, your country needs to have a religion, because if you don't have a religion, then your government is
Claire,
just
why
going
the
to do
fuck are
whatever.
you even fixated on America? You live in Britain and you're Southeast Asian. You shouldn't even have these opinions. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Norvin,
You've dedicated your life to like
because
literally running around the internet to like the
because
same 10 people for like 5 years, 10 how long has it been, Mark? 8 years now, to like the same 10 people trying to convince them that America should become Muslim. It's ridiculous, Claire. I don't know why you do this to yourself. Like, I
Well, I've
don't
got
know why you have this fixation.
well, you've spoken. Has Carol spoken on your show?
No, she has not.
Carol
Well,
Valentine.
America controls the
Carol,
whole
well, anyway, she's a
universe.
white Muslim woman, and she's got a different tag on Twitter now. I think
Well,
it's
when I come to power, people like that are getting executed.
well, that's okay. Norvin, I'm afraid you're not going to get to be president or
Right, Claire. That was obviously a joke. It was
no,
a
but how are you
way
going
of
to do
me.
it? Okay, I
It was a
understand.
comedic way of me establishing hatred. But yes,
Pagans are even more
sincerity,
low.
I personally, if I was a dictator, can do what I want. I would kick ethnic Muslims back to their native countries, and I would execute white converts.
All right. So you're saying if but yours is just
I would also just
wishless
ban
politics.
Christianity totally. If we're talking about what I would do,
Yes, but then the Christians would rise up against you.
Well, if we're talking about a hypothetical, I'm some crazy dictator. Obviously, somehow in this scenario, I convince enough people to kill people who disobey me, and
Okay,
that's how I deal with that.
Okay, so basically you just be executing people left, right, and centre, and I'm saying I'm going to persuade them using the media. I'm going to persuade them using the fourth estate and saturation coverage, and then they'll think, oh, what a wonderful idea.
Establish total pagan supremacy.
But how are you going to do that? It's not popular, and pagans can't agree amongst themselves.
So, Claire, what about a new religion? What about founding a new religion?
No, because then it'll be a cult.
Younger people would be more interested.
Arianism,
there's nothing.
The Church of Orion, Father Orion,
and not syncretism, like just
also true.
From
shout
scratch.
out to also true, guys. I'm done.
Thank you.
There's no advantage
it's completely
in having
against
a new
Islam,
religion.
but you could invent new gods.
No, but look at Scientology. Look at Nation of Islam.
Scientology is very successful in America.
Shout out to Greg Johnson. Apollo is coming for you.
But this is against Islam because it's but you could actually invent new gods, but that's idolatry.
New god, they're gonna go. We want the religion with the longest running track record. We want the most powerful god, and it'll have to be the Abrahamic religion.
Claire, you have not interacted with many Americans. Like, I can tell you, we're nowhere near as Christian as you think we are. And a lot of our Christianity would not even look like Christianity to you.
But then you'll be mocked by the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church and
the Catholic Church has no power in America.
Okay, but if you're going to start forcing Americans to believe in Christianity, you're going to have a lot of trouble.
I'm not trying to force Americans to believe in Christianity. I'm telling you that America is not as Christian as you would think. Like, there's all kinds of polls on this. Actually, a huge number of people in America are pseudo-pagans. They've discovered this. There's a huge growing segment of the population when asked what their religion is, they say no religion, but when they do separate polls asking people if they believe in the paranormal, if they believe in astrology, if they believe in this, that, or the other thing, those numbers keep going up. So why people are abandoning...
And those numbers are more frequent. Those numbers are more frequent in the younger generations.
Yes.
Whereas older generations, like the boomers, they're going to die off. So that's my question: is how are you going to broach these ideas to the younger generations? Because I'm trying to think about it's all well and good to be about these ideas, but we have to think about what's something that's practical that's going to solve these issues.
Look, all the world religions is about forcing people to marry. discouraging fornication through social or legal pressures, and that's the only way to make people have children again and parent them properly so they're not crazy and drug addicted, drink addicted people who kind of waste their lives and don't have children and don't become good parents and to produce, people to replace your group, your race, whatever. I mean, that's why marriage is so universally practiced in countries that are, on the other side of the continent. That's why the Chinese practice marriage, and so do Europeans, and the more sensible people. That's the most fundamental thing. If you're not even producing the next generation, well, forget it. Forget everything else. I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it?
No, Claire, nothing you think is obvious.
I think marriage has a lot of problems that have been. I think it always had problems, to be honest, but those problems have been compounded with modernity. Living in city, right, but also like living in cities.
Well, yes, that's why nobody wants it, really, when you think about it. Yes, we'd all rather screw around, and when we get married, we're going to find people who are more attractive to us than the person we married. Of course, that's going to happen all the time. And the idea is that you're supposed not to do these things. And then your spouse will be happier with you and not want to divorce you and be happy to, keep going to the job that they hate to bring the money back home to bring up the kids. And eventually you will have adult children, hopefully who are a credit to you. And that's it. That's life. And if we can't even do that, then we're just not going to be. We will suffer from degeneracy. And I'm saying, yes, even the Chinese, though they don't know it yet, maybe they're not talking about it, but they're saying their children have all kinds of problems. And because they're so spoiled, they'll probably end up not marrying. And they've already got gay rights in China because there was such an enormous
they don't
imbalance
have gay rights. No.
Well, they
have
kind. If you look it up on Wikipedia.
You're correct. They have huge problems with the ratio of girls to boys who are going to marry, but
so they had to get.
It's under control. The state is on top of it, so state will.
Okay,
control. You can have.
I don't see that
two
because
children now, so it will be 2.1. I think China is like literally a fascist, eugenicist country.
You say fascist in a bad way, and I guess in these circles, I expect people to say fascist in a good way.
I'm a proponent of fascism. Yeah.
I mean, fascism to me just means national unity, and I think nationalists should retake that word and not be because the whole idea of the fasces. The symbol of it, sticks tied together with a string, is featured in Lincoln Memorial. Lincoln sat on either side of where his hands are, but the fasces. And that was all it meant, national unity. And we've allowed it to be turned into a bad word. And therefore, most European countries are just economic zones. And a lot of people are not happy with being a mere economic zone. And so is Australia, and so is Canada, because that's what the global empire is about dividing every country in the world under its sphere of influence into economic zones, and people are not happy.
That's not true. No, actually, like countries used to be more divided, but around the end of the 1800s, there was a move towards like more of a global economy
because of the global empire. Because this is our global empire.
Those empires collapsed, like in World War One.
Well, the British Empire collapsed after World War II, after it lost India.
The Ottoman Empire collapsed after World War One.
Well, collapsing empires are like black holes. I suppose they suck a lot of things underneath when it collapses, but while it exists, when everybody's happy, there are lots of great things like improved communications and transport and the same rule of law throughout. And we're just living through a time when the American empire is about to collapse, and we should understand how we came to be where we are, because all empires collapse through more or less the same reason, I think. They think we're top of the tree, no one can beat us, we can afford to lower our standards as regards sexual morality, we can screw around. And by the time the consequences are known, it's everywhere. And then they want to deny that it was a problem, it is a problem, or it was a mistake. And I think that's where we are now. That's why the American empire is sucking people from all around the world and then basically stopping these people from ever reproducing after they go gay and transgender. And that is the danger of all these immigrants who come. They're going to, have the same happen to white people, happen to them.
Claire, which country in the world do you think is the best? Which country has the best society?
I don't really know because I don't live in these countries. I'm just saying.
If you look at the top 10 countries in the world, first of all, they're all like white, but they're also like they're not so religious. Like a lot of the Scandinavian countries are ranked as some of the best countries to live. Not very religious. Same with New Zealand's ranked highly, not very religious. So I think that's, if you look at all these different lists, that they use different criteria to compile these different lists, and they all pretty much agree that the countries that are the best tend to be relatively like the least religious countries.
But what could be?
And
yes,
yeah.
I have come across this argument for quite a while. So you're saying it's the irreligiosity that has caused their success, but I'm saying it could be a post hoc, ergo propter hoc fallacy. You're saying because we don't practice marriage, we are successful, and I'm saying no. When you gained your wealth as empires, you believe in Christians and respected the institution of marriage, and now you're a declining empire because you've not been practicing marriage for the past 50 years. And feminism has basically destroyed.
You're so focused on marriage only, not the big picture.
Well, it's the most important
Hey,
thing.
Bjarki, how you doing, man?
Hi.
Hey, sir.
Hi.
Hello.
But well, Bjarki, do you really disagree with the importance of marriage in any race? Forget just a white race. If you don't practice marriage, you're going to suffer degeneracy because the next generation is going to be stupider, and the one after that, if you've ever seen a movie called Idiocracy, it says what I'll be trying to say, and it's already happened, and that's all I'm saying.
Marshall just mentioned Scandinavia. There's a lot of Scandinavian families that have big families, lots of kids that they don't always marry. They just like been together, high school sweethearts, and one of them's got issues because maybe their parents got divorced and they don't like marriage, but they got kids anyway. The kids get the dad's after name even if they're not married.
Well, I mean, earlier I forget who asked me that was the best nation, the most advanced nation, and I have to say China, or maybe Russia, because the reasons why the battle drums are being drummed so hysterically is that America just realizes, China, they're going to catch up on us, so we better nuke her now before she gets too powerful. And all this saber rattling is about being afraid of China being more powerful than America. So I guess the correct answer I should have given was China. And they're supposed to be atheists because communists are supposed to be atheist. So that's the reason. But at least China, they're not tolerating unmarried mothers. They're having a problem now, but officially they're not tolerating it. But you will find yourself wanting to tolerate it if you have a low birth rate. Then you'll be saying, well, at least some children are being born. But you already tolerate.
They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They don't have any kebabs and kikes doing that much damage.
There's actually a lot of foreigners and lots of Africans in China. No. Yes.
You can't go to an area like Sichuan province and kebab it up with mosques the way Europe has been.
There are lots of Africans, and there are lots of Chinese in Africa, and lots of Africans go to China to learn Chinese.
Lots. Fucking, there's plenty of gooks and fucking street shitters and your jungle fucking gooks to go around.
You haven't been to China. I know you haven't. You wouldn't go.
There's plenty to go around. There's plenty of them. They're not having a demographic issue.
Well, they've already become less populous than India. And what happens when you have a low birth rate is that the demand for immigrant labor becomes irresistible. This is what has happened to all the countries, all the declining empires. It's like, well, we haven't got enough people, we'll just get them in. Or the locals are
It
always on
doesn't
strike.
matter. It doesn't
I
matter.
don't even. What
Go
did I
to
walk into
China,
here?
what
What
matters
are you
is the
guys
total
talking about anyway?
population.
I walked in and just get asked a question by Claire. The other guys don't even get a chance to talk. Norman can't even say hello. It's like, slow down a second.
Hey,
What do you
BRP.
got? What are you guys babbling about? What is it, Claire? What do you want to tell us? What are you lecturing us about this time, Claire?
But I'm just
What
saying
have I
religion
walked
and
into?
the role of religion in any society and
Claire, we're not going to be Muslim.
I don't know. Okay, don't save the race. Just die out and say, "Oh, I'd rather die,"
Anything
which is what you're
preferable to being
saying.
Muslim.
So was this some sort of planned thing, or did she just jump on? I'm like
She
waiting
just
for a
jumped on.
fucking delivery here. You imagine waiting for delivery and they say be around to answer your door between 10 and 3. It's like, motherfucker.
It sucks.
Who would do that?
No, I got a delivery coming, a big delivery of some stuff, and it's just like, we'll be there between 10 and 3, and I got a day off, so I got to be inside where the sun is shining just to make sure I hit answer the door. But I have to take a Skype call soon. I couldn't stay too long. It depends if the person's up in Australia. There's been some problems there, but yeah, no, Claire's she loves like fucking kebabs going around stabbing up like 8 kids in France and that, don't you?
I never say things like that. I'm
Fuck
saying
off.
religion,
Fuck off.
religion,
Fuck off.
and
There's
you can
fucking
say
kebabs, and they say he's Christian. He come from Sweden, and he fucking stabs. Like, see, when white people have like mental issues and like schizophrenia and that, it's not always that common that whites go around stabbing kids at a playground. You know?
Oh, I guess you're more likely to have mental health issues if you're a
No, the lower
migrant
races like kebabs
refugee.
and gooks like you are fucking like that Chinese in Canada that cut that girl's head off and started eating it at the bus. It's like you underlings, you fucking kebabs, you fucking Luxor, fucking Vietnamese noodles, whatever the fuck you are. You're savages. You torture animals. You talk about China. China like tortures like dogs and burns the fur off a deer while it's alive with its poor eyes blinking, and then they've got the audacity to say that our mass-produced meat processing is like inhumane. It's just like, no, it's
Do
like they
they say
torture
that?
animals.
I wouldn't know.
Well, I mean, it mass-produced like meat is a little bit hard to swallow actually, but I mean, you know, that's just because there's too many
I didn't
people
know
and
you
they
guys
die,
bought
you know?
meat from China.
Yeah, well, I mean, we shouldn't have to support that many people because really
No.
there shouldn't be that many people. But
No, there should not be.
the Chinese and Arabs and that, you know, does it really matter? Like, see, you talk about this, what you're talking about. Okay, so if it's true for someone like Japan is starting to have people in, right? They need the war. They need
some
workers.
fucking Arab savage destroyed a Shinto shrine. It's horrible.
And it's like, so you need these workers, and you got this like elite class that want to maintain what? They want to maintain civilization that people like you are dependent on. No, the civilizations are bringing all these fucking pests.
Well, I'm saying the demand for immigrant labor becomes irresistible when you have a low birth rate.
Oh, no,
so,
no. Hold
actually,
on,
you
let
should
me
be
play
agreeing
devil's
with me
advocate.
about the causes.
Claire. No. Bigger picture. Spenglerian term. Same thing happened to Rome. When those farmers that were basically the Rust Belt of Rome came to see the games, gladiators, each time from their farms. They came to the big city and they were like, holy fuck, this changed from like a couple of years ago. There was so many fucking foreigners with fucking German ghoul here, fucking, I don't know, fucking what here. And gradually that basically, and they wanted power, the slave power. So they said, and they were the woke of the time, Christianity. Okay, we have rights, we want, and then Rome fell. So these things are cyclical. I would
I'm sorry,
say,
I don't
our
understand your...
friend here, Jester, first time I meet you, sir. Um, but I would push
Right
back
by
a little,
tutors.
say these things are like, it's been always like that, you know. To some certain degree,
Oh,
you
what
wanted.
about being?
No, 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 no. America, for example, needs a workforce. It's going to import um,
All
uh,
those South Americans, Mexicans.
Indians for IT, for example, and Mexicans for landscape, for example, and to
Landscape
some
gardeners.
certain
Yeah.
degree, um, I would
Yes,
say
but
you brought
the
this
only
upon
way to keep
yourselves.
your
I would
yes,
say you
because of
opened that
birth
black
rate,
hole
and
at
it's
65. Good luck closing it.
okay. My thesis is really you have to make your people, whoever you think your group is, you have a working class in theory. You got to make them work. It is a job of the government to make the working classes work. If you're just going to, ignore the problem of a welfare class that's growing and growing, and it'll eat out all the productive parts of society, and you've got to sort it out. But that has always been a problem. I'm glad you mentioned the Romans, but the Romans also had a problem because what the plebs would do when they didn't like the conditions was to basically leave the city and for the patricians to clean their own toilets. And they would just leave and go and camp outside the city until they were begged to return after they got
They
better
wouldn't leave.
conditions. So that was basically how
They wouldn't leave.
that they would secede. That was the expression for what these Romans would do, and I think they were called the social wars. And this whole idea of Moses coming out of Egypt was that sort of thing. Moses and his people didn't like the working conditions of the Pharaoh, and Pharaoh wouldn't let his people go. And they thought, well, we're going to go, even though we're landless slaves, and we have really nowhere to go. But if we do what God tells us to do, we're going to conquer the land of Canaan, and we'll establish the kingdom of Israel. And they did it. And then when they fell into idolatry, they lost their kingdom, and they got kicked out of their own country. And that's basically been their story. But somehow or other, they still remain together as a group of people that people hate, thus maintaining their identity, and that's why they're still around. And Christians and Muslims still think, oh, these Jews, they always have one over us. They're always playing a
Well,
trick on us. And
that's a
I think
cliche.
even within
That's a
the
cliche, but it's full of truth because it's cliche. Otherwise, it wouldn't. Something like that.
yes, you
And
won't be able.
that's
Yes,
from the movie
because this is
Naked
the perception
by
of Jews.
Mike Leigh, a great movie. Naked, 1993. I think.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's a great movie.
But I do recommend Idiocracy.
Yeah, everybody's seen it.
Naked.
Well, that's what Islam is. So there you go.
Okay, I'll make a point of watching Naked.
Yeah.
But okay, if you don't want to blame any group or get yourself into trouble, you can still talk about marriage as a form of political activism because nobody can deny what the situation is. America has a 40% illegitimacy rate, and under
That's
democracy,
almost, that has a lot to do with the browns and the blacks.
well, it doesn't matter what caused it. It's just that it is a
It
problem,
does.
and you have a problem with your schools teaching your kids to be gay and transgender, and this is
To be
making
honest, it's not like prolific. Like I mean, like it's not actually. It's kind of a bit of a meme. Like most schools don't teach that.
How do you know? I mean, the people who are concerned are obviously concerned, and because you guys are not parents and don't have school-age children, you don't think it matters as much. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe not enough American men are married fathers with children at elementary school. And maybe that explains the indifference to this sort of thing. And maybe a lot of mothers of children in elementary school are unmarried mothers and they don't care about the principle of the thing of their children being taught to become gay and transgender. And you'll have another generation of children affected by these ideas that will affect their marriageability for the worse. all these societal events are insidious. You know, it carries on without you noticing anything just yet. But this suggests to me that your birth rate is going to decline even more because your government is saying, "Hey, don't worry about it. If you can't get married, if you don't want to perform your gender roles, and nobody wants to marry you, you know, if you don't want, if you know, you can. There are all sorts of marriage substitutes being pushed at you to make you not have children, and the problem's going to get worse."
So focused on marriage only. Marriage, marriage, marriage. That's all you've been
Yes.
saying.
How else you going? Because that's the most immediate form of keeping your group in existence. It's like, yes, you've got all the rules, but
Yeah,
you're not reproducing. Oh,
the
you'll be dead by the
state,
next generation.
the
The
state,
end.
like in China, the state will set policies, eugenicist policies that is um, basically good for the future of the country. Simple as.
China does, but I'm afraid your Western governments, Western liberal governments, they don't even think
Yeah,
of the
because
national
they've been
interest.
infiltrated by the Jewish Zionist elements,
Okay.
Shaboz goys. Norvin, is it Shaboz or Shabazz? Shaboz.
Shavos.
Shaboz.
Shabbos.
Shaboz goys. Yeah.
Okay. It's because of the difficulties of Christianity. There's something, there's a problem with Christianity that was okay. People were naturally Christian because if they chose to deny the divinity of Jesus, they were burnt at the stake. That was how Christianity operated in Europe until the Pilgrim
What's
Fathers
your point?
crossed the Atlantic and America had its first amendment and became a republic, rejecting monarchy and Christianity.
Hmm.
And I'm afraid America is instrumental in destroying belief in the Trinity and, by extension,
Some people
Christianity.
argue that, yes. Some people obviously monarchists. Some people would, yeah, argue that that was a revolt of the peasants, basically another French Revolution. What happened in America? Yeah.
And then it was followed by the French Revolution, which is another regicidal revolution rejecting Christianity and monarchy, ditto Russian Revolution. So it's like Christianity's been fading for 500 years, really. I mean, before the Second World War, the First World
Claire, why
War,
do you keep invoking No one here is a
Oh
Christian.
yeah.
Everyone here hates Christianity. Why do you keep talking like we're
because
Christians?
you have a problem in America. You don't have a religion, and if you don't have a religion,
Claire, look.
oh,
Claire, I will
oh,
have you on another time, but I would like you to go right now because I would like to talk to Bjarki for a minute. I don't want to keep hearing this. It's like having my head beat against a brick wall. Bjarki, are you still there? God damn it. Oh no, he's still there.
still standing by to finish my point. But okay, I'll go now. But I think I've made my point that you guys can't not have a religion because if you don't have a religion, okay, let's pretend
Hey,
your
hey,
religion
hey,
is
bye,
Nazism.
bye, 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 Claire, bye.
Thank you. Bjarki.
Yeah, I'm just watching Tom's Boys docs leftist pedos on Twitter. It's like,
Oh, that's nice.
they've got this thread on all these pedos in the Antifa and the leftist circles in Melbourne, just putting it out. I guess it's time to retaliate, just dox every fucking pedo on the left, send it and fucking redact them all.
Yeah, I'll be careful how to respond to that. Billy Roper's group for a while was doing this. They were doxing Antifa members to their employers. They lived in the South, though, so obviously in the South, being Antifa would carry more of a stigma. Here in California, I don't really think much would happen if you doxed Antifa.
No, they have. There was this commercial. Even their commercials were like, "Yeah, we are the gays, we are the rainbow," and 4 out of like 10 of them that were in the commercial were like charged. They had priors pedophilia, inappropriate interaction with underage, blah, blah, stuff like inappropriate conduct and stuff. But nothing happens to them. They're the system.
No. How things been in the wake of the stabbing in France? Like, overall in Europe, is it just no one really notices, no one cares? Is there a shockwave? Like what if anything has come about from that?
It's there's been other incidents elsewhere. It always happens when it hits summer, so it heats up and the kebabs start to chimp.
This one was
So in Sweden, people are more focused on like a random shooting that happened in Stockholm. An old lady got shot in crossfire. Was fucking gang shooting shit. And it's
this one.
basically
He
it's at the
stabbed,
point.
he stabbed an
Yeah, I don't know.
infant. He stabbed an infant. This is uncharted territory.
Mm.
Sergeant Truck.
I got a strike for posting the video of it. I can't upload anymore because now I got 2 strikes. Yeah, on YouTube that is. I mean, I could
Now
put stuff on
Twitter did
Odyssey
the
if I
same
could be
thing.
bothered.
Twitter took off the videos.
It's just the usual. Like there's a French person at a job I'm at, and I mentioned the video of the people, like because I just fuck with people, you know. I was like, yeah, what about the people, you know, the ones that came out in the nighttime, you know? It's like they look just like French football hooligans, you know, sportswear kind of street smart, sort of like French guys, and he's like, oh, neo-Nazis, they're neo-Nazis, yo. And I was just like, so but they just, I said to him, I was like, but they just look like football hooligans, you know, just like, he said, no, they're the neo-Nazis, yeah, because this man is stabbing children, he was mentally unfit, and there was something wrong with him, absolutely. It's just like, levels of like apologizing for like mentally unstable, like kebabs that stab kids. It's like, so with that, I don't think people really know about it, even as far away as Scandinavia. They're like, it doesn't get like attention. People don't hear about it. Like in Sweden, they're talking about the shooting that happened in Stockholm where an old person got shot as well. But they don't really know. They do well covering these things up. Obviously, if you're paying attention, you know about it. And we know that the video has been censored, but you'd be surprised that most people like won't actually get to hear about these when they happen.
It is unfortunate.
I mean, like, I just put the video up because, I mean, I didn't care about getting a strike. I just thought it'd mainly made some Americans mad. But the thing about it is like I said before, it's like when we have mental health, like the issue is when we have mental health, there's a mass epidemic of mental health in white communities, absolutely. But when whites are schizo, don't go around stabbing kids at a playground in the baby prams, you know, like the way it was like lunging into the prams of each one, just like then going for like babies. It's like, is that because the babies don't fight back? Do you know, like, because like there was this guy like trying to like stop him with a bag and that.
No, this is.
And that guy could have easily.
Nah, this is something more visceral. To stab the infant.
Just kill the white babies.
Yeah, this is either religious
It's
or
hate, and it's the same in America with the blacks. It's just resentment. It's just
Yes.
resentment and hatred.
Yeah.
So talking about religion doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's Christian, and obviously because he's racial inferior is just like even more like lacking in inherent morals. That's what I mean. Claire's banging on about religion, but whites don't need religion really for hundreds of years to know that you go around stabbing kids in the community, you're going to probably be executed by the locals. Like you'll get pitchforked. Like, even schizos and historically insane whites know that if they did that, they'd just be lynched. Yeah, well, I know the answer, Northern, is I don't know. I mean, I don't know what people don't talk about it, right? normal people, like for example, I work at a place with a lot of people. I just did like conference on the weekend for like thousands of people, fucking like rich elite fucks, like landing in helicopters and shit, like car companies making food for the entire staff of Volvo and shit like that, right? It's like, do you think all the people I'm working with go after it happened? You think anyone's like, saying, "Oh, did you see in France or this thing?" It's like no one knows. No one's talking about it. Normies don't know about this.
No.
I mean, you get upset every year, and some years there's more than others. Like that, the general snack bar thing is like slowed down over the past few summers compared to what it was in the years of how should we say? Let's just say events in 2019 by Moles won't say too much. Seem to be a direct result of like events of like 2015 to 2017 in Europe when there was a high frequency of snack barring. But who knows what's going to happen now? Man, I read recently that the Norwegian guy who burglared the mosque was in a gay relationship. Like, I wonder if that's trying to slander him. It's like they're perfectly fine to like, send Nazis to prison even if they were gay, because Nazi trumps being gay. It's like he was gay, yes, but he was still a Nazi.
Yeah, I've said all.
Who are they? So wait, is this Brit and Tarrant they're trying to say was gay?
Is that Norman?
Is it Brit and Tarrant?
No, Man's House, a Norwegian who tried to burglar a mosque like later in the year.
Oh, is this the kid that got stopped?
Yeah,
Got, like,
yeah. They call him. He called himself the third disciple because there's the other two before. Like, hello, ADO, hello, feds. Listen to like just what they want us to talk about, But no, I think it was. He was like after Ernest and Crucius. It was like called himself the third disciple. But hi, feds. Fuck around, yeah, but it's like it's not advocating anything. That's what I mean. Like, this is an interesting conversation. Is like you see, basically, the feds actually admitted they used the word "sadly," right? In Australia, this is they said, "Sadly, Tom's boys aren't crossing the line, so they can't be prescribed." And they said it like that because they were asked by like media or something like, "Why haven't you prescribed Tom's crew?" And they're like, "Well, sadly, they haven't crossed the lines and advocated for anything." So they're basically saying, like, like, we wish we could, but they're too smart. Just like openly saying it, like openly mask off saying, yeah, no, unfortunately, they're not crossing the line at this point, so we can't prescribe them and put them all in prison. Did you see those two young boys doing the Roman salute in Melbourne? And they had the T-shirt, these T-shirts on it, and it said, 6 million, that's a bit much, mate, on the T-shirt. And the fucking it sent shockwaves around the world, like that Abrahamovich, the Australian Greenblatt, just like this is a call to violence against me, and like because they just couldn't handle it. So now they're like so panicked to ban the salute and like anything mocking the Hollabunga, because having the T-shirts coupled with the salute just sent them into a meltdown, because they haven't gotten the laws through to ban the salute yet, even though they really want to, because basically a few protests earlier in the year, But I mean, you can already get like years for the swastika. They got that one through. So public display of anything that's war memorabilia now of that period will get you could get you prison time. But these cunts are like, they're like, okay, well, we'll just go out and Roman salute wearing a T-shirt saying 6 million. That's a bit much. So only two lads and like 20 years old. And Northern, you want to hear about this for one struggle? Is one's wearing a Mjolnir and the other one's like a Catholic. One struggle fucking saluting on the streets of Melbourne. Just two of them, not a big group, they didn't give a fuck. And where they done it, you'll like this, Mutiny, there was some sort of women's Iranian protest or something. So
how is Blair called Blair Contrail? God damn it.
Well, you got a hit piece written on him that they're all ignoring. Angry white men who haven't done a hit in years, and hi, angry white men, go take your faces for a shit, you little fucking weasel fucking cunts. Angry White Men Who Haven't Done a Hit in Ages wrote a hit on because Joel and Tom and Blair are streaming on YouTube. They're so mad that they're doing it on YouTube and haven't got shut down yet. Hang on a second. I just looked at the chat here.
I saw a video yesterday.
Go back to my website, and Claire's complaining about me in the chat. Does she want to? Did she leave the call just to talk in chat? What's going on here?
Am I wrong to
Bayaki, get my name out of your mouth, you fucking jungle goo. Fucking hell.
She's infatuated.
You guys, are you upset that I made her leave? It's not like I have much to say. I just came on to say hello. Like, you can come back, Claire.
Claire is fine in small doses, but I was tired of hearing the shtick.
Speaking of coming back, how's about your mate? Donnie's mad at me for talking to you. You being so friendly with this Brundle cunt that tried to have a go at me the other night.
Wait, Donnie's mad about Brundlefly?
No, I'm joking. I told him I went on and this Brundle tried to ambush me to have a go at me. He's like, dude, why does Norvin keep tolerating all these mamses? I'm like, look, I don't know. Just let him do his thing.
Yeah, no, this is the Blood Sports channel. I let anybody on here.
Why, but it seemed quite amicable. Like, isn't that sweet? You and Brundle going back away, like, and you're like, Biaki was hostile to me. You're talking about hostile. I am not hostile. Yeah, like I wasn't antagonistic.
You were pretty hostile.
No. Check it out. I'll tell you something funny. Rand's like side. Like really rude and really inappropriately rude, like really like schizo, sort of like vulgar rude to like the people who run Xing, this streaming service. And so the other night, this guy, he tried to apologize. He's like, "Look, I want to apologize. I'm gonna give you $500." And the American guy's just like, "No, it's just why you randomly insult me and my friends and like an elderly woman that runs the side as well." So he's just calling her a tranny and shit. So who the fuck do you think you are? It's like that's schizo Aussie antagonism where you just like make enemies of people accidentally because you're just a vulgar, rude piece of shit. Whereas I done stuff just in the chat, Norvin, about talking about Snorri Sturluson or some like spurgy shit that no one else understands, and you banned me. It was not.
I can't even remember what you were mad at me
yeah,
about.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but it's not anything anyone else understood. No, it's not anything anyone else understood. So anyway, so it tells Donnie, he's like, this Brundlefly came and he's all upset at me because I I don't know, like I managed to wind him up, obviously, right? And he's upset. And he come on, and you guys are this cute little gang, you and Claire and Brundle and even Pat. He denies being around Luke Ford, but you just know he was a Luke Ford stalker. It makes sense. And this guy Stephen J. James, when I made a fuss about Brundlefly being on his show, he got so mad. He's like, this Biaki, he's just living in the past, man. He's living in the past. Just let it go, right? You want to call me a mamzer? The thing is, Norvin, is he's 100% not white nationalist at all. Like, he's just the exact, like, Christian cockery of, like, the exact example of the Christ. But when it's, like, not to do infighting, not that you care about doing religious infighting, but when you do it, obviously there's a difference between, like, a Wignat Christian and a fucking Christ cuck Sivnat. Like, he's the epitome of a Christ cuck Sivnat. He's not a white nationalist at all. And neither really is anyone who's going to do that optics bullshit or talk about optics or talk about, but why do they have to do Nazi salutes? It's like, shut the fuck up. You're either a pedo or a Nazi. There's no middle ground anymore. None.
Are you on Twitter?
There's literally no middle ground.
Biaki, are you on Twitter?
No, I mean, me and Brundlefly don't get along for long periods of time. But I mean, Brundlefly's entertaining. Like he's entertaining for a while on a stream. But no, I mean, long term, the religious thing between me and him is too much. And then actually, I don't really know. I know he doesn't like some of my eugenic stuff, but me and him actually, ironically, have never talked politics in terms of actual policy. I think he's more libertarian-esque.
And I've seen it. I've seen it, witnessed it. Yeah, it's not racial. It's not racial, right? I suspect it's some with that accent. It's just some sort of like cosmopolitan Hellwald American, like East Coast something like that sharp. He does the Jew impression a little bit too good. So he wonders why people have this Mamza thing going on. I believe he's just upset because Pat said he'd put his Mamza kid in a microwave or something. I mean, that's not my fault.
Bonafly's wife is half Jewish, so he's got quarter.
Yeah, but I mean, like all the bad blood goes back to Pat saying he wanted to microwave these Mamza kids or something.
Yeah, Patrick said he wanted to put Bonafly's kid into a microwave. At the time, Bono only had one kid.
Oh, well, if he's going to laugh about my friends being dogs, I'll laugh about Patty Cake saying that. Oh, dude. It's just like this internet background that, like, it's kind of like he expects other people should know about it. I barely know who this cunt is. I know other friends of mine, Americans that I know, don't like him for other reasons. And I, who am loyal to them, will just trust them on the issue.
Keffals is trending on Twitter.
Here, Marshall, I'm watching this like sort of like New Zealand Maori sort of like hip hop YouTube sort of criminal sort of show where they interviewed this friend of Tom's in Australia, this guy who sort of does hip hop. It's kind of cringe, but they interviewed him, so I watched it on this YouTube channel, and it's kind of like this hip hop scene that knows about Jews as well. You know what I mean? Like this like non-white sort of, doing interviews with criminals and that, and they're like, they even interviewed this guy who they know he's like basically like Natsok, but he's also like weed smoker, hip hop aesthetic, dreadlocks, he's a fighter, he's tattoos in his face, he's a bit rough around the edges, yeah. And they interviewed him, and you could just tell that both of them must have had a conversation about Jews off air, and like were just like trying to skirt around the edges on their YouTube channel. So I checked out his channel, and on a few shows back, he's interviewing this white woman from New Zealand, who says that ever since she was a teenager and that, like her grandmother and her whole family, like groomed her and raised her to be given to Freemasons for sex slavery since she was a young teenager. And this long interview, like expose, and said that even though like you were talking earlier about peaceful countries, and not to shit on New Zealand, but I want to know if you know about this. She was basically saying that there's like extensive like within like white communities, like child abuse, like systemic generational shit, where she was groomed and given to Freemasons every weekend to be fucked and raped and shit. Have you heard about that New Zealand has like an epidemic of like underground white exploitation, sort of like sex culty, Freemasonic, like weird shit going on in New Zealand? And that's probably why it is the Epstein Island, why all the elites are buying up there. Get two for the price of one. They fucking escape their American hell, and they come to like a massive Epstein Island of like, because we've got such a problem with like white traders that do this shit, this Epstein Island style shit. They're all whites as well. Like, so you heard about this in New Zealand? Because this woman doesn't seem to be lying. She basically said New Zealand has a lot of issues with child abuse.
No, I haven't heard of that.
I know we need to take out the trash on the bad whites, man. Like, it's so true. Like, I was watching her, just like her own grandmother groomed her to do it, and when she just openly said, like, yeah, and they gave, like, not just to Freemasons, apparently they gave it to all sorts. But she's like, yeah, and then every second weekend they gave me to the Freemasons for the whole weekend. It's like, how the fuck is this on YouTube? This woman like exposing sex slavery in New Zealand. But anyway, when it comes to domestic violence and stuff like that, like, like it's in New Zealand number 4 on the most peaceful country list, and Australia's not even on it, and that's because like the violence in like Abo communities like would set it off, so it doesn't even make the top 20. But that means your Maoris must not commit that much violence to be on most peaceful.
Have you heard of there being child slaves in Australia who do like labor? Have you heard of that?
Well, there's different kinds of like ethnic slavery going on in Australia with the basic bitch sort of like, like the Mexicans do the shitty building and landscaping in America, whereas like hospitality, I know as a chef, for example, that hospitality is full of illegal Asians since the 90s, like since the 80s in that industry. But I don't know how competent they are to be builders. I'd say like trades like that is still mainly white in Australia, but like slave labor is definitely a thing in hospitality, but elsewhere there's like, like coffee companies that go bankrupt in Papua New Guinea, and people just like for some reason have these like Papua New Guinean female maids in their houses, and the government won't say anything if it's like, for example, like Asians who have the Papua New Guinea maids. It's like, oh, that's okay. That's just some Hong Kong Asians with some Papua New Guinea like housemaids. Like, there's different kinds of slavery, but I don't know if you're asking about if there's just non-white.
There's a Swedish author and documentary maker, Yuri Lina, and he made a documentary. What does he call it? The Fake World, and he like, I haven't seen it, but I know he talks about like child slaves in Australia.
But like non-white for what? Like,
don't know.
No, I don't know. I can't see that being. I mean, this is what I was asking you about New Zealand, because it seems freaky to me. There could be like white, like cold sort of shit going on in New Zealand where there's like systemic, what they call it, like intergenerational, like females grooming their own fucking granddaughters to do this shit for like sick cults. And I could definitely see that there are some Eyes Wide Shut style sex fucking like demonic fucking pedophilic like cult shit in play in our countries, right? I won't shy away from that, but it's like, I know, like in Australia, like when I was really young, like I took up like night shift when I was injured and I couldn't do chef work at like, you know, when you do like those annoying people that market research shit. And I called up like a Queensland's, this Northern Australia house, and they shut the phone in a rage, as you do, right? But then they picked it back up, and you know when you pick up the old days in landline, you pick up a phone after you've hung up, but if the other person hasn't hung up, it just clicks back on to what's going on. And in the background, there was this fucking ritual going on, like this fucking, and I just listened for a while, just like, what the fuck have I called into, you know? And you should have heard the music and the chanting and all the shit that was going on. I was like, this is like beyond some sort of like sub-Christian cult of like, you know, like song and prayer. It was just like there was some sort of crazy ritual going on. This is peak Anglo area, I was calling, like where Northern Australia and the East Coast to Queensland area is still quite white, you know? So I was just like, what sort of freaky white cult have I stumbled onto, like listening in the background? But like, there would be shit like that in Australia as well. There's still a lot of wealth. There's still a lot of like elite whites, and this doesn't matter if it's Masons or whatever. They make them special. They feel special thinking whatever it is they belong to, whatever the round table club, they feel special belonging to said club, whatever the club is.
Saw an infograph showing like there's a lot of Jewish members of parliament in Australia. Like a lot of them are Jewish, whereas like not so much in New Zealand though.
Yeah, it's weird with New Zealand. I think it's sort of like just ruled by like an extended arm, because that cult shit, it's not like Australians and Americans have nothing to do with it either. It's starting to look like New Zealand is like a safe haven Epstein Island to me. It's fucking dark, man. Like, it's like, because I've always seen it as a paradise where you go, where it's the most safe, you know?
مغز و اعصاب، جراح نیست، داخلی مغز و اعصاب، متخصص داخلی مغز و اعصاب. بعد چهارشنبه باید ببرمش، بگو وقت دیرتر بده برای چهارشنبه.
هم نه دیگه، خب بگو چه ساعتی.
همون هفت مثلا آخر وقت بده، چون این 2 تازه دکتر ممکنه بیاد.
اینجا اگه نمیدونی باید کنسل کنی.
چیزی کنسل کنی؟ نه دیگه، اون الان وقت دکتر مغز و اعصاب بیمار
ساعت چند بگم بهش؟
گفت 1:30 مغز و اعصاب، گفت 1:30.
فردا من به این زنه بگم چند بذاره؟
7 بذاره.
7 باشه.
شاید زودتر برسیم، ولی حالا 7 بذاره.
آره امروزه. امروز من باید بگم ساعت چند. بله. You'll find like-minded people on the internet who enjoy the same things as we do. Cheers.